What's going on, guys? It's Chad, back here on some more Call of Duty. I am still in the middle of this Abyss grind. I have made virtually no progress. This is trash, but it's not really about the camo grind on this video anyway. So yesterday, they ended up updating the game, and they made some sweeping changes, like across the board. But the biggest change that they ended up doing across Warzone, multiplayer, zombies, just across the board, all Black Ops 6 weapons, ended up reducing the amount of visual recoil that everyone is experiencing in the game. Now, the visual recoil is definitely something that gets addressed pretty much every year on every single Call of Duty, but this year it seems way more dramatic. Now, maybe because the visual recoil itself was pretty strong on this game. Like, we've had other years before where, say for example, I think it was Vanguard. Vanguard had a whole bunch of like smoke and shit that was popping out of the weapons and stuff, and all of this like visual recoil and like smoke and all this other shit, all the ultra realistic stuff really started with Modern Warfare 2019. I'm seeing a whole lot of discussion from people, some complaints from people, but honestly, I'm seeing more love than anything. People are loving this update. Whether you're on mouse and keyboard, whether you're on controller, any of that, it doesn't really matter. People generally seem to be enjoying this. Now, there are a few people that have been complaining about it, saying, you know, offering their 2 cents. Man, this SWAT sucks. Yeah, I can even see it on my SWAT currently. Like, every single weapon across the board, there's really, I mean, next to no visual recoil whatsoever. Now, there is this whole debate about, like, whether or not they've made the game way too easy and blah, blah, blah. But understand that the visual recoil pattern themselves have not changed. It might be a little bit easier to see what you're shooting at, but that to me is more of like a quality of life thing as opposed to a difficulty thing. Me personally, I don't think that the visual recoil itself is like real difficulty. The recoil pattern is the same, you still do all the same stuff, it's just that visually it looks a little bit more dramatic than it actually is. Now, I don't mean to make this a whole, like, you know, aim assist, mouse and keyboard versus controller debate thing again, but I am noticing the main people that are actually complaining about this, saying that now the game is too easy, are mostly controller players. Now, that's ironic to me coming from controller players, considering they have, like, the aim assist and stuff. And understand, I know that you need aim assist and blah, blah, blah. I use a controller myself. I've used a controller my whole life. I've had my fair share of takes on controller and keyboard and stuff like that throughout the years. I think aim assist is needed. At no point did I think that aim assist should ever be removed or anything like that, but I've also played other games that also have aim assist in them, but the aim assist isn't nearly as strong as it is in Call of Duty. XDefiant, for example, and a lot of people have been asking me like, oh, thoughts on XDefiant shutting down? I've already put my thoughts out there well before any of this stuff happened, so if you want to find my opinion on that whole thing, you can go back and watch like my more recent XDefiant videos. The truth is, if you're a good controller player, nerfed aim assist doesn't actually hurt you. It actually makes the skill gap a little bit wider because other controller players that aren't as good will start missing their shots because of the weaker aim assist. I think visual recoil is just kind of like fake difficulty, and it's just a bunch of visual clutter more than anything else. I mean, even when you go and look at like old Call of Duties, for example, visual recoil was not really that crazy. I saw somebody post a clip of the MP7 from the original MW3, which is like historically one of the smoothest weapons in Call of Duty history. That shit is beautiful, don't get me wrong. Aim assist, good. Nerfed aim assist, also good. Visual recoil has nothing to do with the actual pattern itself. I think overall this is actually a good change. To me, I consider this a quality of life change more than a balance change, and I think that every Call of Duty should follow suit. No Call of Duty should have this overwhelming, like, visual recoil. The other thing as well is that the visual recoil affects the mouse and keyboard players more than it does the controller players. Because even though we're all dealing with the same visual effect in front of us, controller players don't necessarily have to exactly see what they're looking at to feel it. I play controller, okay? You don't really need to see what you're shooting at a lot of the time. You aim in like the general area, like 80% of like where you think the guy is, and then the aim assist itself, if you know how to use rotational and all that anyway, properly, you just kind of like feel it out with the tug of the aim assist. You feel it out. Mouse and keyboard players don't really have that. Now, of course, they have the ability to be a little bit more accurate. It's not nearly as clumsy as a controller. All the typical stuff we hear about the whole debate, but they don't have the luxury of kind of feeling it out if they can't see them. They need to be able to see them. So to me, it's a quality of life thing. It makes it just better for everybody in general. It helps mouse and keyboard players a little bit more, but I don't think it's an issue. It's not like mouse and keyboard players are like dominating or some shit like that, or this change is somehow like causing some seismic shift in the meta overall. Now it's just making everything easier to look at and see. Not shoot straight, just to see. Oh, he was about to lose that shit. They're a whole team. I can't believe these guys are a team just sitting here fighting one guy. You guys are fucking pathetic. Now, it is obvious that controller is a little bit easier to pick up and do than, you know, typical mouse and keyboard thing. A lot of people argue like, no, one is easier than the other, one is harder than the other. But like, objectively speaking, controller is a little bit easier, which is okay. That doesn't mean that it like requires absolutely zero skill or all that shit.
Dropping into the air.
It's hard to even talk about this because it turns into the whole mouse and keyboard versus controller debate thing, but that's not even really what it's about. To me personally, I think that this is an overall quality of life change, and I think that 95, 90, even higher, 98% of players have zero issue with this overall. Again, it's not changing the actual recoil pattern, it's just getting rid of the visual clutter itself. There's no extra skill involved that you need in order to kill people on a controller with all of this extra, you know, visual recoil and stuff. So, just kind of hurts the game across the board, makes things unclear, makes gunfights feel odd, and also makes the gunfights themselves more questionable. We already have these issues with the hit registration and people taking shots and taking no damage and stuff like that. It's nice to be able to have a more clear visual representation of what is and is not hitting. So to me, this isn't even like a balance change one way or the other. This to me is, again, a quality of life change. The issue is that we end up having to do this almost every single year, where they have to update the visual recoil overall over and over and over again. That's probably the most frustrating thing about being a Call of Duty player year over year, is that we have to sit there and wait for the same changes over and over and over and over and over again, instead of actually progressing forward. And then the good things that we do have from the last game all gets reset with the brand new game every single time, over and over and over again. I'm pretty sure that the devs are aware of that. Like, surely they know. Across all of the dev teams, it might honestly even be a part of the design. Create the same issue every single year so we can then go and praise the developers for fixing this same issue that they know how to fix the entire time. I'm not getting into all the conspiracies and stuff. We would have a drastically different Call of Duty if we had all of the quality of life changes over all of the Call of Duties over the past, I don't know, 7, 8 years. Just saying. Also, I found that clip I was talking about with the MP7, and just to show you guys how there was like next to no visual clutter or any smoke or anything like that popping up in front of you on the OG arcade Call of Duties. Call of Duty is an arcade shooter. Look at this. Look at the MP7. Look how smooth and clear and clean the picture is. Look at this shit. I can feel he's got Stalker on as well, so he's got all the extra move speed. Oh, look at the TTK. There's still a recoil pattern that he has to control. The player's just obviously very, very adept at using this weapon in particular, but it still had a recoil pattern. Look at the hip fire. You see how simple that shit is? Clear picture. There's no muzzle flash, nothing. Now, given he is using a suppressor, so there is going to be a little bit more muzzle flash without it. But again, it's just not nearly as prevalent. It's so smooth. I actually can't get over it. That shit makes me want to go and play now. No tack sprinting, nothing. Just the old original arcade shit. Moab calls a Moab in. Respect it. Now, given I'm pretty sure that since it says the kill streak at the top, this is for sure like on a private server or whatever. It's not the OG, but again, you get what I'm saying though in terms of like the overall picture that you get whenever you're firing. It's a good thing.